Imagine a universe where creation doesn't begin with a single moment, but cycles endlessly through birth, death, and rebirth, where gods dream worlds into existence and the entire cosmos floats on an infinite ocean of milk, where time itself is just a breath of the divine. This isn't fantasy. This is the Hindu story of creation, one of the oldest and most mind-bending origin stories ever conceived. And what it reveals about existence will challenge everything you thought you knew about how we got here. Because in this story, there is no beginning, there is no end, there is only the eternal dance of creation and destruction, spinning forever in the mind of God. Before anything existed, there was nothing. Not darkness, not emptiness, not even the concept of nothingness itself. The ancient Hindu texts, the Vedas, describe this state as beyond human comprehension, a reality where existence and non-existence had no meaning. This wasn't the void of modern physics or the emptiness we imagine when we close our eyes. This was something far more profound. It was the unmanifest potential of everything that would ever be. And floating in this impossible non-space was a single being, a presence so vast that calling it a god seems inadequate. This was Vishnu, the preserver, lying in cosmic sleep on the coils of Ananta, the infinite serpent with 1,000 heads, drifting on the primordial ocean that existed before oceans had meaning. As Vishnu dreamed, something miraculous occurred. From his navel, a lotus began to grow, its stem rising through dimensions of reality, its petals unfurling with impossible geometry. And seated on that lotus was Brahma, the creator, awakening to consciousness with a singular purpose, but no memory of how he came to be. Brahma opened his eyes and looked around, seeing nothing but endless water and the sleeping form of Vishnu below. Confusion gripped him. Who am I? Where did I come from? What is this place? These weren't just Brahma's questions. They were the universe asking itself into existence. So Brahma began to meditate, diving deep into his own consciousness, searching for answers in the only place they could be found, within. For thousands of cosmic years he sat in meditation, and slowly, understanding dawned. He was the instrument of creation, and the time had come to begin. But Brahma faced a problem. How do you create a universe from nothing? The answer lies in one of Hinduism's most profound concepts. Everything that exists is already contained within the divine consciousness. Creation isn't making something from nothing. It's the unfolding of what already exists in potential form within the mind of God. Brahma began to divide himself, splitting his being into complementary forces. He created the principles of existence, time and space, matter and energy, consciousness and form. From his thoughts came the Vedas, the sacred knowledge that would structure all reality. From his breath came the rhythms that would govern cosmic cycles. And then came the blueprint for life itself. Brahma created the 7 great sages, the Saptarishi, who would go on to populate the universe with beings of every kind. He fashioned the gods and the demons, the celestial realms and the earthly planes. He wove together the fabric of karma, the law of cause and effect that would govern every action in every lifetime. If this story is expanding your mind, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our deep dives into the world's most fascinating creation myths. Drop a comment telling me which creation story you want to hear next. But here's where the Hindu story diverges radically from most creation myths. In many traditions, creation happens once, linearly, with a clear beginning and eventual end. Not in Hinduism. According to the ancient texts, what Brahma created wasn't the first universe. It was one universe in an endless cycle of universes, each existing for one day in the life of Brahma. And that day, it lasts 4.32 billion years. When Brahma's day ends, the universe dissolves back into the cosmic ocean, returning to that state of unmanifest potential. Vishnu sleeps. And when Brahma awakens again, he creates anew. This cycle repeats for 100 years of Brahma's life, with each year containing 360 of these cosmic days and nights. When you do the math, we're talking about timescales that dwarf modern cosmology, periods so vast that human comprehension simply breaks down. And when Brahma finally dies after his 100-year lifespan, another Brahma is born, and the cycle begins again, forever. But creation is only one part of the story. Enter Shiva, the destroyer, the third member of the Hindu trinity. While Brahma creates and Vishnu preserves, Shiva's role is to end each cosmic cycle, clearing the way for renewal. This isn't destruction as we understand it, some malevolent force bent on annihilation. It's transformation, the necessary dissolution that allows new forms to emerge. The ancient texts describe Shiva performing the Tandava, the cosmic dance that shakes the foundations of reality itself. His dance represents the constant movement of the universe, the eternal rhythm of creation, preservation, and destruction, happening simultaneously at every moment. Every atom vibrates with this dance. Every star that's born and dies echoes its rhythm. You, reading this right now, are part of Shiva's dance, your cells dying and regenerating, your thoughts arising and dissolving, your very existence a temporary pattern in the eternal flow. This brings us to perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of Hindu cosmology, the nature of reality itself. According to these ancient teachings, the universe we perceive isn't ultimately real. It's Maya, often translated as illusion, but more accurately understood as the divine play or cosmic illusion. Everything we see, touch, taste, and experience is a projection of consciousness, a dream in the mind of Brahma, or, more accurately, in the unified field of consciousness that pervades everything. This doesn't mean the universe doesn't exist. It means it doesn't exist in the way we think it does. It's real in the way a dream is real to the dreamer, substantial and meaningful within its own context, but ultimately a temporary manifestation of something deeper and more fundamental. And what is that fundamental reality? Brahman, the ultimate consciousness, the ground of all being, infinite, eternal, and unchanging, the one reality from which all apparent multiplicity springs. Here's where it gets personal. According to Hindu philosophy, you aren't separate from this cosmic story. You're not some accidental byproduct of creation, not a tiny speck lost in an incomprehensibly vast universe. The deepest teaching of the Upanishads, the philosophical texts that explain the Vedas, is captured in one phrase: Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. The consciousness that looks out through your eyes, that thinks your thoughts, that experiences your life, is the same consciousness that dreamed the universe into being. You are not in the universe. The universe is in you. Your true nature, your Atman or individual soul, is identical with Brahman, the cosmic soul you've simply forgotten. Creation, in the Hindu view, is God playing hide and seek with itself, consciousness deliberately fragmenting into countless beings, each forgetting its divine nature so it can rediscover it. Every life you live, every experience you have is part of that rediscovery. So why does any of this happen? Why does consciousness divide itself? Why does the universe cycle endlessly through creation and destruction? The ancient sages offered an answer that might surprise you. Lila, the divine play. The universe exists because consciousness delights in experiencing itself through infinite forms. There's no ultimate purpose beyond the experience itself. It's art for art's sake, existence for the joy of existing. But within this cosmic play, individual souls journey toward moksha, liberation, the realization of their true nature as Brahman. This isn't about escaping to some heavenly realm. It's about waking up to what you've always been, recognizing that you were never separate from the source. And once that recognition occurs, once you see through the veil of Maya completely, you exit the cycle of rebirth. Not because you're destroyed, but because you've remembered that you were never truly born, that you are the eternal witness, the unchanging consciousness behind all changing forms. The Hindu interpretation of creation offers something rare, a creation story that's also a meditation on consciousness, a cosmology that's simultaneously a psychology, a myth that contains within it the seed of direct experience. It tells us that the universe is far stranger and more beautiful than we imagined, that time operates on scales that humble our brief lives, and that the ultimate truth of existence might be found not by looking outward at the cosmos, but inward at the nature of consciousness itself. We're not just stardust. We're the universe, waking up to itself, consciousness playing at being human, divinity temporarily forgetting its nature so it can rediscover the wonder of what it's always been.
Long before the great empires rose and fell, before the world's most famous prophets drew their first breath, something ancient was already taking root in the Indian subcontinent. We call it Hinduism, and it may be the oldest living spiritual tradition on Earth, stretching back more than 4 millennia. But here's what makes it unusual. No single founder, no one moment of creation. To many who practice it, Hinduism wasn't invented, it was always there, like the universe itself, where it all began. The story starts with the Indus Valley Civilization, one of humanity's earliest experiments in urban living. These people built sophisticated cities, practiced ritual cleansing, and honored feminine divine forces. Something spiritual was clearly at the center of their world. Then came the Vedic period, roughly 1500 BCE, and with it, the composition of the Vedas, a body of sacred Sanskrit texts unlike anything else in the ancient world. These weren't simple stories. They were intricate, poetic hymns exploring gods, nature, consciousness, and creation. The oldest, the Rig Veda, contains over 1,000 hymns, composed at a time when most of humanity hadn't yet developed writing. At the heart of these texts was a radical idea. Beneath all the gods, all the rituals, all the visible world, there exists one invisible, all-pervading force. They called it Brahman, not a deity in the conventional sense, but the very fabric of reality itself. Hinduism is famously home to millions of gods, but this isn't the chaos it might seem. Most Hindus understand these deities as different expressions of that single cosmic truth. Brahman, wearing many faces. Vishnu, the preserver. Shiva, the destroyer and renewer. Lakshmi, goddess of abundance. Each one a lens through which humans can approach the infinite. Hinduism also introduced a framework for human life built around 4 goals. Dharma, living rightly and fulfilling your duties. Artha, building prosperity and security. Kama, experiencing joy and beauty. And moksha, ultimately liberating the soul from the endless cycle of rebirth. It's a surprisingly holistic vision, honoring both worldly life and spiritual freedom. Few ideas from Hinduism have traveled further than karma. The principle is elegant. Every action you take sends ripples forward, not just through this life, but into the next. Because in Hindu belief, death isn't an ending. The soul moves on, reborn into a new existence shaped by how the last one was lived. Live with compassion and integrity, and your next chapter improves. Spend your days in cruelty or selfish indulgence, and the universe will have lessons waiting. No divine judge, no courtroom, just the weight of your own choices carried forward. It's a philosophy that places extraordinary responsibility and power in the individual. Perhaps the best way into Hinduism's heart is through its 2 legendary epics. The Ramayana follows Prince Rama on a sweeping quest to rescue his wife Sita from a demon king, a tale woven through with loyalty, courage, and divine intervention, complete with flying chariots and an army of monkeys. The Mahabharata goes even deeper. At its center is a devastating civil war between rival branches of a royal family. On the eve of battle, the warrior Arjuna is paralyzed by moral doubt. His charioteer, revealed to be Lord Krishna himself, then delivers one of the most profound spiritual discourses ever recorded. That dialogue became the Bhagavad Gita, a text that continues to shape millions of lives today, exploring duty, the nature of the soul, and what it truly means to act with integrity. Over centuries, India was conquered and colonized by Mughal dynasties and later by the British Empire. Temples were destroyed, traditions were suppressed. Colonial administrators actually hardened the caste system, using it as a tool of social control. Missionaries dismissed Hindu beliefs as primitive superstition. But Hinduism's response was not collapse, it was reinvention. Reformers emerged, challenging discrimination, simplifying rituals, and bringing ancient wisdom into dialogue with the modern world. No one embodied this more powerfully than Mahatma Gandhi. Drawing directly from Hindu principles, particularly ahimsa, the ethic of nonviolence, Gandhi built a mass movement that ultimately drove the British from India. The country gained independence in 1947, though not without the painful rupture of partition, which divided the subcontinent along religious lines. India's new constitution outlawed caste discrimination. The struggle for equality continues, but so does the momentum. Today, Hinduism is the third largest religion on the planet, with over 1 billion followers spanning every continent. Its influence on global culture runs deeper than most people realize. Yoga, meditation, mindfulness, the concept of karma, the ethics of vegetarianism, all of these have Hindu roots, and all have become mainstream in the modern West. So what ultimately is Hinduism? It resists simple definition. It's not one god, one book, or one doctrine. It's a vast, living tradition, a way of perceiving a world where everything is interconnected, where every choice echoes across lifetimes, and where the soul's journey has no final destination, only deeper understanding. More than most traditions, Hinduism has always been comfortable with questions, perhaps because it has always suspected that the deepest truths aren't learned from the outside. They're uncovered from within. And maybe that's the most powerful gift Hinduism offers the modern world. Not a rigid set of rules, but an open invitation to question, to seek, to grow. India is not just a country on a map. It is a civilization that has been asking the biggest questions humans can ask about life, death, duty, and the divine for thousands of years. And it hasn't stopped asking. That story deserves to be told, and we are here to tell it.
Something happened thousands of years ago that we cannot explain. Gods walked among humans, not as symbols, not as stories. Physically present, Lord Vishnu appeared in front of kings. Lord Shiva spoke to sages. Devas descended. Battles happened, blessings were given, curses were real, and then it stopped. No more appearances, no more divine voices, no more miracles you can stand in front of and touch. And here's the question that nobody wants to ask honestly. Why? Did the gods leave? Did they die? Did they never exist? Or did something happen to us? Because here is what the ancient texts actually say. And it's not what you think. The reason you cannot see gods has nothing to do with whether they exist. It has everything to do with what you have become. Stay with me. Because what I'm about to tell you will change how you see reality itself. Let's start with a simple, uncomfortable truth. You trust your eyes completely. If you don't see something, it doesn't exist. That's the invisible law you live by. And it feels logical. It feels scientific even. But your senses are not showing you reality. They are showing you a fraction of it. Right now, as you watch this, there are radio waves passing through your body. Wi-Fi signals, infrared radiation, magnetic fields, none of which you can see, hear, or feel, and you accept that completely. You never say, Wi-Fi doesn't exist because I can't see it. A dog hears frequencies your ears cannot reach. A snake senses heat your skin cannot detect. Some birds navigate using the Earth's magnetic field, a force completely invisible to you. So the question is not, is something there? The real question is, am I equipped to perceive it? Because you already live inside a universe that is far larger than your 5 senses can capture. Science confirmed this. Physics confirmed this. And yet, the moment someone says, maybe divine consciousness exists beyond the range of human perception, suddenly that feels impossible. That's not logic. That's a blind spot. Now, here is where it gets personal. Let's talk about Arjuna, because his story destroys every excuse we have. Arjuna was standing next to Lord Krishna. Physically, every single day, they ate together, They laughed together. They planned military strategy together. He could touch Krishna's shoulder. He could look into his eyes. And still, Arjuna could not see who Krishna truly was. Not because Krishna was hiding, not because Arjuna wasn't devoted enough, but because Arjuna's human perception simply could not process what was standing in front of him. Then came the moment in Kurukshetra, when Arjuna broke down, when he dropped his bow, and Krishna began speaking what we now call the Bhagavad Gita. And at the end, Arjuna asked to see Krishna's true form. Krishna said yes, but first, he gave Arjuna Divya Chakshu, a divine eye, a different mode of perception. Not better eyesight, a different kind of sight entirely. And what did Arjuna see? Something with no beginning and no end. Something containing every god, every demon, every star, every life form, all at once. Time collapsing forward. Armies dying before the battle even began. And Arjuna, a warrior who had faced death his entire life, could not handle it. He begged Krishna to stop. He was terrified. He asked for the familiar human form back. Think about what that means. Even when God was physically present in human form, a human being still needed a completely different perceptual system just to begin to see the truth. And even after receiving that ability, the experience was so overwhelming that a trained, disciplined, deeply devoted warrior could not sustain it for more than a few moments. Now look at yourself honestly. What preparation have you done? What discipline? What stillness? You expect to see what Arjuna couldn't see, without even wanting to put down your phone for an hour. Now let's ask the deeper question. Even if humans could perceive the divine, should gods be permanently visible? Think about what that would do to humanity. If Lord Vishnu walked the streets today, visibly, undeniably in a form everyone could see, what would happen? People wouldn't act from understanding. They wouldn't grow. They wouldn't choose. They would obey out of pure fear, or worship out of spectacle. The entire meaning of free will, of karma, of spiritual evolution, gone. The Vedic framework understands this. Vishnu appears only when cosmic balance is broken. He takes an avatar, a descent, accomplishes the restoration, and withdraws. Because permanent divine visibility would destroy the very conditions needed for human consciousness to evolve. Shiva lives on Kailash, but not in a form you can photograph. Not because he is absent, but because his presence is not limited to a body that occupies a single location. He's not hiding, he's everywhere, but in a frequency most human minds cannot tune into. Brahma created everything and then stepped back. Because creation does not require the creator to stand next to every atom explaining itself. The creation is the evidence. Every breath you take, every child born, every tree that grows from a seed, that is Brahma's work, happening in real time, whether you acknowledge it or not. Not seeing something is not proof it isn't there. It is only proof that you are not currently perceiving it. Here is the part that should disturb you most. In ancient times, even then, not everyone saw gods. It was never random. It was never just about luck or location. The ones who experienced the divine were the ones who had done something specific. They had trained their minds to become still. Tapas, dhyana, samadhi. Practices built on one principle, that consciousness, when purified and stabilized, begins to perceive what ordinary consciousness cannot reach. Now look at the modern mind. You wake up and within 30 seconds, you are inside your phone. Your mind is never still. Not for a single uninterrupted minute. It is always reacting, always comparing, always producing noise. Even when your body is resting, your mind is running at full speed, going nowhere. If something divine and subtle were happening around you right now, you would miss it. Not because it wasn't there, because you are not there. Not fully, not quietly. Your attention is distributed across 100 different things at all times. The ancient texts don't say God is loud and obvious and difficult to ignore. They say the opposite. The divine is described as sukshma, subtle, fine, delicate. It does not perform for distracted minds. It does not compete with notifications. A signal is already in the air. The question is whether your receiver is tuned. And now comes the most important question of all. You keep asking, where is God? You keep looking outward, at temples, at scriptures, at the sky. But the Upanishads point in a different direction entirely. Tat Tvam Asi, that thou art. The consciousness you are using to search for God, that itself is the thing you are looking for. The awareness behind your eyes right now. The thing that watches your thoughts. The presence that is still there even when your mind goes completely silent. You are searching everywhere outside for something that has never left the inside. So here is your real question, not why can't I see God? The real question is, who is the one that's looking? If Lord Vishnu appeared in front of you right now, not in the form you've imagined, not with 4 arms and a conch shell and a dramatic entrance, but quietly, subtly, in the most unexpected form, would you recognize him? Or would you glance up, feel nothing, and go back to scrolling? Be honest, because that honesty, that moment of real self-examination, might be the closest you've come to the divine in a very long time. Every religion on earth has a devil, a dark lord, a fallen angel, a cosmic enemy of God. Christianity has Satan. Islam has Iblis. Zoroastrianism has Ahriman. But Hinduism, the oldest living spiritual tradition on this planet, has no devil. Why? Is it because Hinduism ignores evil? Because its gods are weak? Or because it understands something so profound, so terrifyingly true about the nature of darkness that it never needed one? What if evil was never the opposite of God, but a part of God itself? Stay, because what you're about to discover will change the way you see everything. Most of us grow up in a world built on a single idea, that good and evil are 2 separate forces, eternally at war. Light versus darkness. God versus the devil. Heaven versus hell. It's a clean story. Comfortable. It tells us exactly who to blame when things go wrong. But Sanatan Dharma, what the world calls Hinduism, looked at the cosmos and asked a far more dangerous question. What if there is no separation? Thousands of years ago, the rishis, the great seers of ancient India, sat beneath stars that modern telescopes have only recently learned to count. They didn't just observe the universe, they entered it. And what they found was not a battlefield between God and the devil. What they found was Brahman, the single, infinite, undivided consciousness from which all things emerge and into which all things return. Everything. Light and shadow, creation and destruction, love and cruelty, the saint and the murderer. All of it. 1. This was not a comfortable revelation. It was a shattering one. So if there is no devil, no singular architect of evil, where does darkness come from? In Sanatan Dharma, the answer is found in a single Sanskrit word. Avidya. Ignorance. Not ignorance as in stupidity. Not ignorance as in lack of education. Avidya is the cosmic forgetting. The moment a soul forgets its own divine nature and begins to believe it is separate. Separate from others. Separate from the universe, separate from God. And from that forgetting, everything we call evil is born. Greed, because you believe you are not enough. Hatred, because you believe the other is truly other. Violence, because you have forgotten that the one you wound is you, This is why Hinduism never needed a devil, because evil is not an invading force from outside. It is a direction, a turning away from truth. It is the darkness that exists not because a demon lit it, but because a soul closed its eyes. But here is where Sanatan Dharma becomes truly extraordinary. It doesn't just explain evil, it personifies it in the most breathtaking way imaginable. Look at the great demons of Hindu mythology, the Asuras. Ravana, the most brilliant scholar of his age, master of the Vedas, devotee of Shiva, and yet consumed by ego, by lust, by the belief that his intellect made him untouchable. Hiranyakashipu, a father so consumed by power and revenge that he tried to murder his own son for daring to love God. Mahishasura, a warrior of such immense strength that even the gods could not defeat him, whose arrogance became his blindness. Western eyes look at these figures and see villains. Hindu eyes see something far more terrifying and far more beautiful. They see mirrors. Every demon in Hindu mythology is a magnified reflection of something that lives inside every human soul. Ravana is your pride. Hiranyakashipu is your rage. Mahishasura is your refusal to surrender. The gods don't fight demons to destroy evil. They fight to awaken the soul that evil has swallowed. Even more astonishing, many of the greatest demons in Sanatan Dharma were once divine beings. They were devas, celestial beings of light, who, through desire or pride or a single fatal choice, fell into darkness. They were not created evil, they chose it, turn by turn, thought by thought, just like us. Here is the moment that stops most people cold. In Hinduism, the gods themselves carry darkness. Shiva, the supreme deity, worshipped by hundreds of millions, is the god of destruction. He dances as the universe ends. He carries a trident. He wears serpents. He lives in cremation grounds. Kali, the divine mother, stands on a battlefield. Her hands red, her eyes wild, necklace of skulls around her throat. In any other tradition, these would be demons. In Sanatan Dharma, they are God. Why? Because Sanatan Dharma understood something that took Western science millennia to discover. That destruction is not the opposite of creation. It is its partner. Stars must die to birth new ones. Forests must burn to grow again. The self must be broken to be reborn as something greater. Shiva does not destroy because he's evil. Shiva destroys because without endings, nothing new can begin. Kali does not kill out of cruelty. Kali slaughters the ego, the false self, so the true self can finally breathe. This is the secret the rishis encoded in every myth, every deity, every temple carving. Darkness is not the enemy of the divine. It is the womb of transformation. So what does all of this mean for you, sitting here in this moment in your life? It means this: the darkness you carry, your fear, your shame, your anger, the parts of yourself you hide, they are not proof that you are broken. They are not evidence of a devil inside you. They are avidya, they are forgetting, and remembering is always possible. Sanatan Dharma does not ask you to wage war against the darkness within you. It asks you to understand it, to look at it without flinching, to ask, what have I forgotten that made me this way? Because the moment you understand the root of your darkness, it begins to lose its power. This is Dharma, not a rule book handed down from a throne in the sky, but the living, breathing, dynamic truth of what you are. You are not a sinner fighting a devil. You are a divine being, temporarily lost in the dream of separation. And the entire universe, every god, every demon, every story ever told, exists to help you find your way back. Hinduism has no devil because it never needed one. It had something far more powerful. The truth, the cosmos is not a war. It is a conversation between light and shadow. And you are both. This is Sanatan Dharma. This is the eternal way. And it has been waiting for thousands of years for you to remember. If this opens something in you, a question, a feeling, a spark of recognition, then you already know what to do. Like this video. Not for the algorithm, but as a signal to the universe that truth still matters. Share it with someone who's fighting their own darkness right now. They may need this more than you know. And subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Every week, we go deeper into the ancient wisdom of Sanatan Dharma. The stories, the gods, the philosophy that shaped one of the greatest civilizations ever to walk this earth. The next video will take you even further. Are you ready? There is a king whose name is carved into the Mahabharata, the Vishnu Purana, the Shiva Purana. And yet almost no one tells his full story. He carried a mountain on his spine. He let poison pour from his own mouth. He watched his people burn, name by name, and could not stop it. And through all of it, he never asked for anything in return. Not power, not glory, not even to be remembered. Lord Krishna himself, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, speaking to all of humanity across all of time, stopped and said, "Among serpents, I am Vasuki." That one line should tell you everything, but it tells you nothing unless you know the story behind it. Today, we go there. Vasuki was born in the lineage of Maharishi Kashyap and his wife Kadru, the mother of all serpents. From her, thousands of Nagas came into being. Sheshnag, Takshak, Karkotaka, Padma. A great and ancient clan, older than most of what we call civilization. But Vasuki was different from the beginning. You may know Sheshnag, the cosmic serpent, whose infinite coils form the bed on which Lord Vishnu rests, and upon whose hoods the weight of the entire earth is balanced. Sheshnag is the symbol of eternal patience, of holding, of endurance without complaint. Vasuki is something else. If Sheshnag is the stillness beneath existence, Vasuki is the one who moves into the fire. He became the Nagaraj, the king of the Nagas. His realm was Naglok, a hidden kingdom in the depths of Patal Lok, described in the texts as luminous with gems, alive with ancient knowledge, filled with rivers that carried not water but wisdom. And over all of it, Vasuki ruled with something rare in kings of any age: equal justice. The small Naga and the great one stood in the same court. The same Dharma applied to both. He is described with a Nagamani, a jewel upon his forehead that lit all of Naglok without need of sun or fire. 9 hoods, each representing a different direction of power. And eyes that, if you met them, made you remember your own wrongdoings. Not with shame, but with clarity. The gaze of a just king. But here is the thing about Vasuki's inner life that the texts quietly reveal. He was not interested in power for its own sake. From the very beginning, what he wanted was something simpler and something far more difficult. He wanted to serve. In the early days of Naglok, when Vasuki was still young in his kingship, he heard about Mahadeva, not the sanitized version, not Shiva, the gracious deity sitting comfortably in a temple. He heard about that Shiva, the one who smears cremation ash on his body, who chooses to live among the dead in the forests that others flee from, who holds destruction and compassion in the same hand and calls it the same thing. Something in Vasuki recognized that. Something in him said, "This is the truth I have been looking for." He went to the Himalayas. He found a cave and he sat down. The penance he undertook was severe. The texts use the word go, which means something beyond what the body should survive. No food, no water. Months passed into years. Storms broke over the mountain. Snow buried the cave entrance. Termites moved across his scales. And still, the mantra continued. Om Namah Shivaya, a current running beneath every breath, beneath every silence. And then one day, because Shiva always comes for those who truly call, the earth shook. The sky broke open in a strange thunder, and Mahadeva stood before him. Ganga flowing through matted locks, the crescent moon cool on his forehead, ash on his skin like starlight, and in his eyes, that particular quality of Shiva's gaze that sees through everything you have built around yourself, straight into what you actually are. Shiva looked at Vasuki and said, "Your devotion has drawn me here. Ask, what do you desire?" Vasuki was quiet for a moment, and then he said, "My lord, I want nothing. Only this, that I may always remain near you." Think about that. A king, a being of extraordinary power, sitting before the source of all boons. And what he asked for wasn't sovereignty over new realms, not immortality, not weapons or wealth or influence, just proximity, just the right to serve. Shiva was silent. Then, "Tathastu, from today, you will become the ornament of my neck." And so Vasuki, king of the Nagas, took his place coiled around the throat of Mahadeva, where he remains in every image, in every Shiva Linga, in every temple across the world to this day. Still there, still holding, still choosing nearness over everything else. But devotion, in the Hindu philosophical tradition, is never simply a feeling. It is tested. Repeatedly, as if the universe needs to confirm that what you carry is real. Vasuki's test came with a task that no one else could do, and that anyone with self-preservation instincts would have refused. The gods had lost their divine power to a sage's curse. The demons had seized the heavens. Lord Vishnu offered a solution. Churn the Kshir Saga, the cosmic ocean of milk. From its depths would rise Amrit, the nectar that cannot be exhausted, the immortality that cannot be revoked. But the churning required Mount Mandarakala as the rod, and the rod required a rope. Brahma said, only Vasuki could serve as that rope. The gods and demons came to Naglok together, a strange alliance born of shared need. They stood before the Nagaraj and asked him to offer his own body as a tool, to wrap himself around a mountain, to be pulled from both ends by beings far less scrupulous than himself. Vasuki understood exactly what was being asked. He was not naive about the pain it would involve. The weight of Mandarakala pressing into his spine, the tearing from both sides, the possibility that his body would simply give out before the churning was done. He was silent for a moment. Then, "I am ready." The churning began. The gods stood on the tail side, Vishnu's quiet wisdom at work, placing them there deliberately. The demons on the head side, thinking themselves more powerful for it. They didn't understand that as the friction grew and the spinning intensified, the smoke and fire would pour from Vasuki's mouth, and it would pour directly into their faces. Vasuki didn't even know he was protecting the gods. He was simply enduring. The mountain turned. The ocean heaved. The pressure on his body was unlike anything the scriptures describe in physical terms. They simply say that Vasuki bore it, that he did not cry out, that he did not ask for the churning to stop. And from the depths, creation began to release its gifts. Kamadenu, the wish-fulfilling cow. Ushchaishravas, the divine horse. Airavata, the white elephant. Kalpavriksha, the Apsaras. Lakshmi herself, rising on a lotus. Dhanvantari, carrying the vessel of Amrit. And then, something else. The water blackened. A smell unlike anything living reached the gods first. They stepped back before they understood why. Then the surface broke open, and what rose was Hala Hala, the Calcut venom, the poison that had accumulated in the depths of all creation since the beginning of time. A substance so lethal that its mere proximity began to wither the trees, silence the birds, boil the ocean. Both gods and demons fled, and Veski was still there, still wrapped around the mountain. He had given his word, and his word to him was not negotiable. He breathed the halahala. He felt it move through his scales, and he stayed. Everyone called for Shiva, and Shiva came. He lifted the halahala in his palm, held it there for one terrifying moment for all the worlds to see, then drank it. Parvati caught his throat. The poison stayed there, neither going down nor coming back. His neck turned blue, and so began the name that echoes through every prayer: Neelkant. In that moment, Vasuki was coiled around that very throat. He felt the poison his god had drunk. He felt the stillness of Shiva holding death inside himself and not being moved by it. And something in Vasuki, already broken from the churning, already carrying the weight of the mountain in his bones, something in him simply held tighter, not in panic, in love. But the hardest chapter of Vasuki's story is not the churning. It is not Tripura Dahan, where he became the string of Shiva's bow so that 3 demon cities could be destroyed with a single arrow. It is not even the Mahabharata, where his blessing doubled Bhima's already mythic strength. The hardest chapter is the one that came from his own home, his own blood. Kadru, his mother, made a bet with her stepsister Vinata over the color of a divine horse's tail. When she realized she was about to lose, she commanded her Naga children to coil themselves on the horse's tail and make it appear black. A lie disguised as obedience. Many Nagas refused. They said, "This is sin. We will not do it." Kadru cursed them. In her rage, their own mother cursed her children, sentenced them all to die in fire. Vasuki was king. He bore that knowledge quietly. A king often has to carry the weight of what he cannot undo. And then, generations later, it came true. King Janamejaya, consumed by grief over his father Parikshit's death at the fangs of Takshak, initiated the Sarpa Yajna, the serpent sacrifice, a ritual of absolute annihilation, where mantras were recited, names were called, and each name serpent, wherever it was in the 3 worlds, was pulled by invisible force directly into the fire. The fire roared, and the names began. Vasuki sat in Naglok and listened. Name by name, face by face, a servant from his court, a friend of his brother, a child who had only just learned to speak. Into the fire, into the fire, into the fire. He who had not wept through the pain of Samudra Manthan. He who had not flinched when Shiva drank poison against his scales. He wept. And in his grief, he asked the question that perhaps you too have asked in your own life. In whatever language, in whatever moment of helplessness, must the children always pay for the sins of those who came before them? Can one lie, one moment of weakness, truly erase an entire lineage? He closed his eyes. He remembered Shiva, and he prayed, not the formal prayer of ritual, but the raw prayer of a king who has run out of options. The answer came not from above, but from within his own family. Long ago, Brahma had told him, "Your sister Jaratkaru will bear a son named Astika, and Astika will be the one." Vaski turned to his sister Manasa Devi, herself weeping, herself burning, and said quietly, "Sister, your son is our last hope." Astika arrived at the Yajna site, young, radiant, filled with Vedic knowledge so deep and precise that King Janamejaya stopped the ritual just to listen. Pleased, the king offered a boon. Astika asked for one thing only: stop the Yajna. The fire died. The names stopped. The Nagas were saved. And Vaski, the king who had moved mountains, who had held creation together as a rope, who had been a weapon and an ornament and a witness, fell at the feet of his young nephew and said, "You have given life to my entire lineage. I am forever in your debt." A king, bowing to a child, because that child had done what all his power could not. That is what Dharma looks like when it is real. It doesn't calculate status. It honors the source of grace, wherever it comes from. On the battlefield of Kurukshetra, with armies facing each other across a field of unthinkable consequence, Arjuna broke down. The Gandiva fell. His hands trembled. Krishna spoke. He revealed his Virat Swarupa, the cosmic form that contains all of existence, and walked Arjuna through it. He named the greatest of everything. Among gods, I am Indra. Among rivers, I am the Ganga. Among mountains, I am the Meru. And then, among serpents, I am Vasuki. Not Sheshnag, who holds the earth, not Takshak, who is feared across the three worlds. Vasuki, the one who asked for nothing, the one who endured without complaint, the one who wept for his people in private and found a way forward anyway. When God says, "I am this," He isn't simply listing the powerful. He's pointing to a particular quality that He recognizes as divine. In Vasuki, that quality was this: the willingness to serve beyond what serving costs you, to hold the mountain even when your spine is breaking, to stay near your God even when your God is drinking poison. That quality, Krishna was saying, is not ordinary. That quality is me. Every year in the month of Shravan, Nag Panchami is observed. Milk is offered to serpents, prayers are spoken, and in every temple, coiled around every Shivalinga, there he is. Still. Vasuki, still holding, still there. We tend to remember the gods who blazed, who fought and won and returned in triumph. Those stories are necessary. They give us courage. But Vasuki's story gives us something else. It gives us the permission to serve without recognition, to stay when staying is painful, to hold tighter when everything in the situation tells us to let go. Most of us will never churn a cosmic ocean, but most of us know what it is to carry something heavy, a responsibility, a grief, a family burden we did not choose, and to keep going anyway, to keep showing up. Not because the reward is coming, but because this is who we are. Vasuki did not become divine because he performed great deeds. He performed great deeds because he had already decided, quietly, in a Himalayan cave, alone, what he was willing to give, and to whom, and without condition. That decision is available to all of us, every single day. If Vasuki's story moved something in you, write it in the comments. Not just Jai Vasuki. Tell me which moment. Was it the penance, the churning, the names falling into the fire? Those comments become the next video. Your questions shape this channel. Subscribe and press the bell, because the next journey is already being prepared.
In the beginning, before time had a name, there was only the vast cosmic ocean. Its waters were neither warm nor cold, but perfectly balanced, stretching infinitely in all directions. The ocean breathed slowly, gently rising and falling like the chest of a sleeping child. Upon these calm waters rested the great serpent Shesha, whose 1,000 heads swayed softly with the rhythm of the waves. Each head was adorned with jewels that caught the light of distant stars, creating gentle patterns of light that danced across the water's surface. And upon Shesha rested Lord Vishnu, the preserver of all that is. His blue skin glowed softly with an inner light, peaceful and constant like the evening sky just after sunset. His 4 arms rested gently at his sides, and his eyes were closed in the deepest, most peaceful meditation. Beside him sat Lakshmi, the goddess of abundance and grace. She watched over him with infinite patience, her hand occasionally moving to fan him gently with lotus flowers. The fragrance of these flowers drifted across the cosmic ocean, sweet and calming. Time moved differently here. A moment could be an eternity, and an eternity could pass in a breath. There was no urgency, no haste, only the gentle rocking of the cosmic waters, the soft breathing of Vishnu, and the quiet presence of Lakshmi. The stars above moved in their ancient patterns, creating spirals of light that reflected in the still waters below. Occasionally, a cosmic breeze would ripple across the surface, creating gentle waves that lapped against Shesha's form. Vishnu dreamed, and in his dreams, entire universes were born. Galaxies swirled into existence, stars ignited, planets formed and cooled. Life emerged, slowly, patiently, like flowers opening to the morning sun. But here, in this timeless place, all was still, all was calm. The cosmic ocean held everything in its embrace, rocking it gently, endlessly, peacefully. Far beyond the cosmic ocean, in a realm where worry cannot exist, lies Vaikuntha, the eternal abode of Vishnu. It is a garden of infinite beauty where every flower blooms in perpetual peace. The gardens are filled with wish-fulfilling trees, called kalpavriksha. Their branches hang low with the weight of golden fruits, and their leaves whisper softly in breezes that carry the scent of jasmine and sandalwood. Beneath these trees, the grass is soft as silk, perfect for resting. Crystal-clear streams wind through the gardens, their waters so pure they sing as they flow. The sound is like gentle bells, creating a melody that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Small bridges of white marble arch over these streams, their surfaces smooth and cool to the touch. In the center of the garden stands Vishnu's palace, made of materials that shimmer between gold and pearl, always changing, always beautiful. The walls are not solid but seem to be made of light itself, welcoming and warm. Inside the palace, time does not exist. There is only the present moment, stretching peacefully in all directions. Celestial beings move through the halls, slowly, gracefully, never rushing, never worried. Their footsteps make no sound on the crystal floors. Vishnu walks through his garden in the gentle light that is neither day nor night. He pauses to touch the flowers, and they lean toward him like children seeking comfort. Birds with jeweled feathers rest on his shoulders, singing softly. He sits beside a pond filled with lotus flowers. The flowers are pink and white and blue, their petals perfect, their fragrance subtle and sweet. Vishnu gazes into the water, and the water gazes back, perfectly still, perfectly clear. In the reflection he sees not himself, but all of creation. Every soul, every life, every moment of joy and peace. He watches with infinite patience, infinite love, infinite care. Nothing is rushed, nothing is forced, all unfolds in its own perfect time. The evening light in Vaikuntha is golden and soft, casting long, gentle shadows. The temperature is always perfect, the air always fresh. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do, only the eternal present moment of peace. Long ago, in one of Vishnu's gentle dreams, there was a great flood coming to cleanse the world. But Vishnu, ever compassionate, appeared to a wise king named Manu in a form both humble and profound. He came as a tiny fish, no bigger than a finger, swimming in the king's cupped hands as he performed his morning prayers at the river. The fish looked up at Manu with eyes full of wisdom and spoke in a voice like flowing water. "Protect me, and I shall protect you," the little fish said softly. Manu placed the fish in a small clay pot filled with water, but overnight the fish grew larger. By morning, it needed a bigger vessel. Manu moved it to a large jar, then to a pond, then to a lake. Each time the fish grew but remained gentle and calm. Finally, the fish was too large for any container, and Manu took it to the ocean. As he released it into the waves, the fish spoke again, its voice now deep as the sea itself, yet still gentle. A great flood will come in 7 days. Build a boat, gather seeds of every plant and pairs of every animal. When the waters rise, I will return to guide you. Manu did as instructed, working calmly and methodically. He built a strong boat of fragrant wood, gathering the seeds and animals with care and patience. He spoke to them softly, telling them not to fear, that all would be well. When the rains began, they fell gently at first, then stronger, filling the rivers and lakes, spreading across the land. But there was no panic in Manu's heart. He loaded the boat and waited. The fish appeared, now vast as a mountain with golden scales that caught the light of the covered sun. A great horn grew from its head, and Manu tied the boat to this horn with a rope made of the serpent Vasuki, who offered himself willingly for this purpose. Through the endless waters, the fish pulled the boat gently but steadily. The rain fell around them like a curtain, and the waves rose and fell in long, slow rhythms. Inside the boat, the animals rested peacefully, trusting in Vishnu's protection. Days passed, or perhaps weeks. Time had no meaning in the endless water, but the fish swam on, never tiring, never rushing. Finally, the rain began to slow, the clouds to part. The fish guided the boat to a mountain peak, emerging from the receding waters. As Manu secured the boat, the fish spoke one last time. You and these creatures are the seeds of the new world. Grow slowly, peacefully, and remember, life is precious, and I am always watching over it. The fish descended back into the calm waters, becoming smaller and smaller, until it was just a gentle ripple on the surface, and the world began again, slowly, peacefully, in its own perfect time. In another of Vishnu's dreams, the gods and demons decided to work together to churn the cosmic ocean, seeking the nectar of immortality. But this required patience, cooperation, and the guidance of Vishnu himself. Vishnu took the form of a great tortoise, Kurma, and dove beneath the cosmic ocean. His shell was vast, like a floating island, and perfectly still. Upon this shell, the gods placed Mount Mandara to serve as the churning rod. The serpent Vasuki wrapped himself around the mountain, and the gods held his tail while the demons held his head. Together, they began to pull, back and forth, churning the ocean. The motion was rhythmic and steady, like the breathing of the earth itself. Pull and release, pull and release. The mountain turned slowly upon Kurma's back, grinding against his shell with a sound like distant thunder, low and rumbling. Vishnu, as the tortoise, remained perfectly still beneath it all. His meditation was unbroken. The weight of the mountain was nothing to him. He supported it all with effortless ease, his presence providing stability to the entire endeavor. As the churning continued, wonderful things began to emerge from the ocean. First came Kamadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow, who walked calmly from the waves. Her coat white as milk, her eyes gentle. She found a peaceful place to rest on the shore. Then came the white elephant Airavata, massive and majestic, moving with surprising grace. He trumpeted softly and went to stand in the shade of a wish-fulfilling tree. The goddess Lakshmi emerged, radiant and calm, seated upon a pink lotus flower. She floated across the water, toward Vishnu, and as she approached, all became more beautiful, more peaceful, more harmonious. The moon rose from the waters, cool and soothing, taking its place in the sky to mark the gentle passage of time. The parijata tree emerged, its flowers so fragrant they could calm the most troubled mind. But then came challenges. A terrible poison, Hala, began to seep from the ocean, threatening to destroy everything. Yet even this was part of the plan. Lord Shiva appeared and drank the poison, holding it in his throat, turning it blue. The crisis passed, peacefully resolved. The churning continued, slower now, more rhythmic. The gods were losing, not slowly, not with dignity. They were being hunted, dragged from their thrones, scattered across the sky like broken stars. Indra, Lord of Lightning, the king of heaven himself, had fled his own palace with nothing but the clothes on his back. The celestial army lay in ruins. Prayers rose from the earth unanswered, and above all of it, growing fat on the silence where divinity used to live, sat a demon named Tarakasura. He hadn't cheated to win. That was the worst part. He had earned this. Tarakasura was not born powerful. He became powerful the hardest way a demon can, through absolute, agonizing devotion. For years beyond counting, he stood motionless in meditation, starving his body, burning under the sun, standing in rivers of ice, refusing to break. He was performing tapas, the sacred austerity that, in the Hindu cosmos, generates so much spiritual heat that even the gods are forced to take notice. The universe has rules, and one of them is this: sincerity of devotion must be rewarded, regardless of who is doing the devoting. Brahma appeared before him, reluctant but bound. "Ask," the Creator said, "and it shall be given." Tarakasura smiled. He had thought carefully about this moment. He knew that the greatest warriors have the shortest lives, that brute strength always finds a stronger fist. So he asked not for power. He asked for a loophole. He asked that only one being in all of existence could ever defeat him, the son of Shiva. It was, as plans go, nearly perfect, because Shiva had no son. Shiva's beloved, Sati, had died, burned herself in sacred fire at her father's insult to her husband's name. And Shiva, shattered by grief, had sealed himself away from the world in meditation so deep that mountains grew silent around him. He was not going to marry again. He was not going to father a child. He was not going to open his eyes. Tarakasura had chosen his weakness with the precision of a surgeon, and so the demon took Swarga, the kingdom of heaven, and no one could stop him. The gods sat in desperate council. They had tried everything: weapons, alliances, strategy, brute force. Tarakasura had crushed it all. There was only one solution, and it was a problem that felt impossible. Someone had to make Shiva fall in love again. They turned to Parvati. She was already there. Parvati was not Sati reborn by accident. She was the great goddess Adi Shakti, the primordial feminine energy, the force that underlies all existence, who had chosen to walk the earth again as the daughter of the mountain king Himavan, for exactly this purpose. She already knew what the gods were too afraid to ask, and she had already begun. She went to Shiva's mountain. She brought flowers. She swept the path around his stillness. She sat near him and matched his silence, day after day, refusing to leave. But Shiva's eyes did not open. The gods, impatient, made a mistake. They sent Kama, the god of love, divine archer, whose flower-tipped arrows could crack open even the most sealed heart, to fire at Shiva from behind a tree. The arrow found its mark. Shiva's eyes opened, and then his third eye opened. A bolt of cosmic fire erupted from between Shiva's brows and reduced Kama to ash so completely that not even memory of his form remained. The god of love was gone in a single breath. His wife, Rati's scream, echoed across every realm. Shiva shut his eyes again. But here is the thing about Parvati that the gods had underestimated. She was not waiting for Shiva to love her. She was waiting to be worthy of him. After the disaster with Kama, she did not retreat. She removed her jewels and her fine clothes, let her hair grow loose, and went into the forest to perform her own austerities, standing in fire in summer, sitting in snow in winter, eating nothing but fallen leaves, then nothing at all. The mountain shook with the heat she generated. Now it was Shiva's eyes that opened on their own. He came to her disguised as a wandering ascetic, tested her, argued with her, even mocked the god she was waiting for. And Parvati defended Shiva's honor, to a stranger with such fire that the disguise fell apart. Shiva stood before her, revealed, and he knelt. They were married in a ceremony that the cosmos itself attended. Celestial musicians played, flowers fell from cloudless skies, and even grief paused to watch. But the child they needed could not be born easily. Shiva's power had been contained for an age. The energy he carried was not ordinary. It was the concentrated force of the universe's own destruction and regeneration, compressed into a single divine seed. When it was finally released, it burned so intensely that even Agni, the god of fire who carried it as a favor, cried out in pain. The Ganges herself, the purest river in all creation, was asked to receive it. From the water, wrapped in reeds, 6 glowing sparks emerged. 6 children, 6 perfect blazing babies, each one humming with a fraction of Shiva's infinite power. The 6 Kritikas, celestial star mothers, the Pleiades made flesh, found them. Each took one child to her breast. Each began to nurse one face of the divine. And then Parvati arrived. She looked at her 6 sons and felt something no philosophy could contain. With a cry of longing, she pulled all 6 children toward her at once. And where there had been 6, there was now one child, 6 faces, 12 arms, eyes that held the light of 6 stars. He opened 6 mouths and laughed. They named him Skanda. He was days old when the gods crowned him commander of their army. Let that sit for a moment. The celestial forces, ancient warriors, gods of wind and fire and thunder, all knelt before an infant because something in his presence made the choice obvious. This was not just power. This was purpose, wearing a body. This was the universe correcting itself, catching the arrow it had launched at its own heart. When Skanda rode out on his peacock, a bird he had subdued himself, taming its vanity and pressing it into divine service, the armies of heaven moved with him. His vel, the sacred spear given to him by Parvati, was not merely a weapon. It was her Shakti made physical, the goddess's own power, condensed into a point of absolute truth. Tarakasura saw the child coming and laughed. He had laughed before at armies. He had laughed at gods and heroes. But this laugh was different. It had a tremor in it, because even a demon who had outsmarted the cosmos could feel when the game had already ended. Skanda drove the vel through Tarakasura's chest. The demon fell, heaven exhaled, and across the 3 worlds, every being that had bent under the weight of that tyranny stood up straight for the first time in ages. Here is what this story is actually about. Tarakasura's boon was not stupidity, it was logic. He believed that grief was permanent, that a broken god stays broken, that the wound in Shiva's heart was a wall no one could climb. He was wrong. Parvati didn't storm the wall. She sat beside it. She matched the silence. She became worthy before she became a wife. And in doing so, she didn't just win Shiva's love. She brought the force of divine creation back into a universe that had started to give up. Skanda is not simply the son of a god and a goddess. He is what becomes possible when devotion meets patience, when grief is not denied but transformed, when the universe refuses to surrender even when every strategy has failed. He is born from fire, carried by water, raised by stars, made whole by love. He is 6-faced because wisdom looks in every direction at once, and he arrives, always, exactly when the darkness has convinced itself that it has already won.
What if India never existed? Imagine waking up tomorrow in a world where you can't count past 3, where doctors have no concept of 0 in their calculations, and a simple infection could kill you because antibiotics don't exist. You can't play chess, there's no yoga to relieve your stress, and your smartphone? completely impossible. This isn't some dystopian nightmare. This is what our world would actually look like if one civilization had never existed. Today, we're erasing India from history, and what you're about to discover will shock you. Because without India, the world you know wouldn't just be different, it would be unrecognizable. Let's find out why. Our story begins in the year 2026, but in an alternate timeline. You wake up, reach for your phone, but something's wrong. The screen shows strange symbols, Roman numerals. It reads IXXX instead of 130. You try to check your bank account, MMMDCCL dollars. That's 3,750, but it takes you 5 minutes to figure it out. Welcome to a world without the decimal system. In our reality, Indian mathematicians invented the concept of zero and the decimal place value system between the 5th and 7th centuries CE. The mathematician Brahmagupta formally defined zero and its operations in 628 CE. But in this alternate world, that never happened. Europe struggled with Roman numerals until the 13th century in our timeline. Without Indian mathematics filtering through the Islamic world, they'd still be struggling today. Try doing multiplication with Roman numerals, 44 times 23. Good luck. Advanced mathematics, engineering, physics, all practically impossible. Your morning coffee costs $12.49. The calculation gives you a headache. You head to work, but your commute takes 3 hours instead of 30 minutes. Why? Because computers don't exist. Modern computing relies entirely on binary code, ones and zeros. But in this world, the concept of zero never existed. Without zero, there's no binary. Without binary, no programming. No programming means no computers, no internet, no smartphones, no GPS, no social media, no artificial intelligence. The digital revolution simply never happened. Engineers in this alternate world still use mechanical calculators that jam and break. Space exploration, impossible. Landing on the moon required millions of calculations per second. Something unthinkable without computers. Satellites, weather prediction, modern aviation, all gone. Your office still uses typewriters and filing cabinets. Your smartphone is actually just a landline phone that weighs 5 pounds. Messages take days to arrive by post. At lunch, your colleague mentions she's feeling ill. She has a simple bacterial infection, but she's terrified, and she should be. In our world, India contributed enormously to medical science. Ancient Indian physicians pioneered cataract surgery, rhinoplasty, and understood the importance of hygiene. But more critically, in our timeline, Indian origin scientists have been crucial in modern medicine development. Without the mathematical precision that Indian numerals provided, pharmaceutical calculations would be nearly impossible. Imagine trying to measure 0.5 milligrams of a compound using Roman numerals. Drug development would be set back centuries. Your colleague faces a grim reality. Without advanced medicine, her life expectancy is about 40 years. Infant mortality is sky high. Diseases we consider minor are death sentences. Surgery, it's barbaric. Anesthesia dosing requires precise calculations impossible in this world. Antibiotics exist in crude forms, but without precise measurements, they're as likely to kill as cure. After work, you want to relax, but there's no such thing. Yoga, meditation, Ayurveda, all the wellness practices that help modern people manage stress, never existed. These originated in ancient India thousands of years ago. In this alternate world, people have no systematic approach to mental health and wellness. The concept of mindfulness, popularized globally through Indian meditation practices, is unknown. Stress-related diseases are rampant. People work until they collapse because there's no cultural framework for work-life balance that these Eastern philosophies introduced to the West. You come home exhausted, but there's no yoga class, no meditation app, no breathing exercises to help you decompress. Just exhaustion and a stiff drink, if you're lucky. You want to play a game to unwind. Chess doesn't exist. Chess originated in India around the 6th century CE as Chaturanga. In this alternate world, strategic board games never evolved beyond simple dice games. The entire genre of strategy gaming, from chess to modern video games based on tactical thinking, never developed. You can't watch a Bollywood film because, obviously, there is no Bollywood. But more than that, the storytelling traditions that influenced global cinema are absent. The narrative structures, the epic storytelling traditions from the Mahabharata and Ramayana that influenced everything from Star Wars to The Lord of the Rings, gone. Music is different too. The concept of the scale, particularly the 7-note scale that evolved partly through Indian classical music traditions, might have developed differently. Modern music theory would be unrecognizable. Getting dressed the next morning is depressing. Cotton fabric, refined through millennia of Indian textile innovation, is crude and expensive. India was the original home of cotton cultivation and textile manufacturing. The intricate dyeing techniques, the fine weaving methods. In this world, clothing is rough, uncomfortable, and prohibitively expensive. The global fashion industry, which in our world sources extensively from India and was inspired by Indian textile traditions, is a shadow of itself. Those comfortable cotton t-shirts you love? They're either non-existent or cost a month's salary. Buttons, which spread globally partly through Indian trade routes, might not have proliferated. You're stuck with complicated laces and ties. Dinner time arrives and you're hungry, but your food is bland, monotonous, and boring. India contributed more spices to global cuisine than any other civilization. Black pepper, cardamom, turmeric, cinnamon, ginger. These were traded globally from India for millennia. In our alternate world, European food never evolved beyond salt and local herbs. There's no curry, no chai, no concept of layered spices creating complex flavors. The spice trade, which drove the age of exploration, never happened. Without the pursuit of Indian spices, European nations might not have developed their naval technologies as rapidly. Columbus was seeking a route to India when he stumbled upon America. Think about that. Without India, the European discovery of the Americas might have happened decades or centuries later, completely changing world history. Your dinner is boiled meat and plain bread every single day. As you lie in bed, unable to sleep in this stressful, uncomfortable world, you search for meaning. But philosophical and spiritual concepts that originated in India, karma, dharma, nirvana, the idea of nonviolence, ahimsa, that inspired Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and countless peace movements, none of these exist. Buddhism and Jainism, both born in India, never spread across Asia. Tibet, Thailand, Japan, Korea, their entire cultural and spiritual identities would be unrecognizable. Buddhism shaped East Asian civilization as profoundly as Christianity shaped Europe. Without these philosophies, the world is more brutal, less contemplative. The very idea that nonviolent resistance could topple empires, an idea that changed the 20th century, never emerged. Even language is impoverished in this world. Sanskrit, one of the oldest languages, influenced countless other languages. Linguistic concepts, the study of grammar through Panini's work, the foundation of modern linguistics, never developed. Words like sugar, orange, jungle, shampoo, bungalow, veranda, avatar, and thousands more never entered global languages because they came from Indian languages. The comparative study of Indo-European languages, which revolutionized our understanding of human history and migration, would be impossible without Sanskrit as a key piece of evidence. As we zoom out from this alternate timeline, we see a world that's darker, more difficult, less connected, and far less advanced. India's contributions weren't just about inventions, they were about fundamental concepts that enabled human progress. Zero wasn't just a number, it was a philosophical breakthrough that said nothing could be something. That paradoxical thinking enabled everything from advanced mathematics to quantum physics. The decimal system didn't just make math easier, it made advanced science possible. Indian philosophy didn't just offer spiritual comfort, it provided frameworks for ethics, governance, and social change that reverberated globally. In our real world, India's ancient universities like Nalanda attracted students from across Asia. Its mathematicians, astronomers, doctors, and philosophers shaped human knowledge. Its trade connected East and West. Its spiritual traditions offered alternatives to materialism. Its struggle for independence through non-violence showed that moral force could defeat empires. Without India, we wouldn't just lose Bollywood, curry, and yoga. We'd lose the very foundations of modern life, from the smartphone in your pocket to the ideas of peace and nonviolence that, however imperfectly, guide international relations today. So the next time you use your phone, practice yoga, enjoy spicy food, or simply count to 10, remember, you're using gifts from a civilization that stretches back thousands of years and has shaped absolutely everything about the modern world.
They say when goddess Durga weeps, the monsoons rage across India. But few know why. In the celestial gardens where gods walk, there once bloomed a love so profound it shook the heavens themselves. A warrior goddess and a mortal prince. Love was poetry written in stardust, but destiny had penned a different ending. On the night of the blood moon, she held his dying body in her arms, his mortal heart unable to bear the divine fire of her immortal love. Some flames burned bright, some loves reached to far between worlds, and some tragedies echo through eternity. Long before temples rose in her name, before songs celebrated her victories, Durga walked the earth during a time when the veil between divine and mortal realms was gossamer thin. She had descended to vanquish the demon Raktabija, whose blood spawned 1,000 copies of himself with each drop spilled. The battle had raged for 40 days and 40 nights. Painting the Vindhya mountains crimson dot, it was on the 41st dawn, as she cleaned her celestial weapons by the Narmada River, that she first saw him. Prince Advait of the Chandravamsa dynasty knelt at the water's edge, offering prayers not for victory or wealth, but for wisdom to serve his people justly. His voice carried a melody that made even the river pause its flowing. Durga, accustomed to prayers of desperation and fear, found herself transfixed by this different devotion. "You pray like someone who has already found what he seeks," she said, materializing before him in the soft light of dawn. Her divine radiance dimmed to spare his mortal eyes. Advait looked up, and in that moment, the cosmic wheel of fate shuddered. He saw not a goddess, but a woman whose eyes held the weight of infinite battles, yet sparkled with curiosity about the simple world he inhabited. "I pray," he said steadily, "to be worthy of the breath I've been given." What began as conversation became companionship. Durga would appear in the royal gardens at twilight, and they would walk among the jasmine and champak flowers. She told him of celestial wars and cosmic duties. He shared poetry, showed her how monsoon clouds look different from earth than from heaven, taught her the names his people gave to stars she had only known as distant fires. "Why do mortals love so fiercely when they have so little time?" she asked one evening, as fireflies danced around them like falling stars. "Perhaps because we have so little time," Advait replied. "Every moment becomes infinite." She had lived millennia, but had never understood this truth. In her immortal existence, centuries passed like seasons. But with Advait, each heartbeat felt both eternal and fleeting. Their love grew like the sacred banyan tree, slowly, then all at once, roots reaching deep into forbidden soil. She showed him how moonlight tasted on mountain peaks. He taught her the pleasure of rain on skin, the comfort of silence shared, the bravery in vulnerability. But the heavens were watching. Lord Brahma summoned her to the celestial court. The other gods stood in a circle of judgment, their faces carved from cosmic indifference. "You forget yourself, Durga," Brahma's voice echoed through dimensions. "A goddess does not love a mortal. It disrupts the balance. His soul cannot contain your divinity. Your love will destroy him, then make him immortal," she pleaded, her warrior's pride crumbling. "I have served without question. I have never asked for anything. Asterisk immortality is not given. It is earned through cosmic cycles," Brahma said, "and even if it were possible, he would cease to be the man you love. His mortality is the very essence that draws you to him. The urgency, the fragility, the courage to love despite death. Then I will give up my divinity," Durga declared. The council fell silent. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. "If you do this," Brahma warned, "you will become mortal, but your divine essence will remain within you, incompatible with human form. You will live one human lifetime, aging in days what should take decades, and he will watch you fade helpless. Is that the gift you wish to give him?" Durga returned to earth, her heart a battlefield. She found Advait in their garden, and he knew immediately that something had changed. They've forbidden it. He said simply. It wasn't a question. She told him everything. The price of love, the impossible choice. Then we must let each other go, Advait said. Though his voice broke, like pottery, I will not be the reason you lose your immortality or yourself, and I will not lose you to the brevity of mortal years while I remain unchanged, watching century after century, carrying the memory of your face until the stars themselves forget their names. She replied. They stood at an impasse of impossible love. But fate, cruel architect, had other plans. The demon Raktabij's final curse, dormant all these months, awakened. To fully destroy him, Durga had absorbed his essence, not knowing it was poison to any mortal who touched her divine form directly. Their stolen moments had been safe only because she had dimmed her true nature. But when assassins attacked Advait in the garden, instinct overtook caution. She saved him with her full divine power, her true form blazing forth. The victory was instant. The assassins turned to ash, but Advait collapsed, divine fire burning through his mortal channels. She caught him as he fell, immediately understanding what she had done. My love, he whispered, in every prayer, in every life that may come after this one, I will search for you, and I will find you, she promised, tears falling like stars. I swear on my immortal soul, I will find you. He smiled once more, then faded like morning mist touched by sun. They say goddess Durga killed 1,000 demons that night, her grief transforming into holy rage. But no amount of destruction could bring him back. She returned to the heavens, but part of her remained forever in that garden, in that moment, holding the impossible weight of love that transcended worlds, but could not transcend the laws of existence itself. Even now, in the monsoons, some say they hear her weeping. And in the royal gardens where jasmine still blooms, poets claim that on certain twilight evenings, two shadows walk among the flowers, forever reaching for a touch that can never be.